It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24 monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel, credit stop and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24 monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel, credit stop and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, we are discussing the third book in our fantasy series read-along, The Book of Life by Deborah Harkness. Stay tuned. Today's episode is sponsored in part by audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com now has 175,000 titles and 1.2 million podcasts. New customers get 3 free audiobooks comprised of 1 premium credit and 2 VIP titles. Use our promo code SHELFADDICTION, spelled as one word, when you sign up at audiobooks.com. Again, our promo code is SHELFADDICTION. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Participate in this book discussion by joining the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official. Talk about the series with us there, as well as other bookish topics. I hope to hear your thoughts on this book discussion. As always, you can find the 3 of us on Twitter and Instagram. The links for everything are below in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with some book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That would really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing so. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including this podcast after show. We get even more candid with what we have to say. So if you're interested in that at all, you'll need to come on over to Patreon and sign up. Before we get started, I have to issue a spoiler warning. This is a roundtable book discussion, so nothing is off limits. You've been warned. Welcome back to another 3 Book Blogger 1 Series read-along discussion, and today we are talking about the third book in the trilogy of the All Souls trilogy, which is The Tree of Life by Deborah Harkness. So I'll give you the book stats, and then co-host here for today, since Casey's not with us, Nicola will give us the rundown. Oh, by the way, welcome back, Nicola.
Hey, everybody.
I'm off my game today.
Also, it's
All
the
right.
Book of Life, not the Tree of Life.
Oh, the Book of Life. I don't know. It's probably because I'm thinking about a tree on her body. Okay, we'll get into that later. Let me give this synopsis.
There's reasons for that slip.
There's reasons.
For sure.
Okay. All right. So this came in with a hardcover length of 561 pages. The unabridged audio version is 23 hours and 53 minutes, narrated by Jennifer Akita, published July 15th, 2014 by Viking Adult and Penguin Audio, respectively. So if you wouldn't mind with the synopsis, please.
You bet. This is coming off of the Amazon summary page. It says, bringing the magic and suspense of the All Souls trilogy to a deeply satisfying conclusion, this highly anticipated finale went straight to number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list. In the Book of Life, Diana and Matthew time travel back from Elizabethan London to make a dramatic return to the present, facing new crises and old enemies. At Matthew's ancestral home, Septur, they reunite with the beloved cast of characters from A Discovery of Witches. But the real threat to their future has yet to be revealed. And when it is, the search for Ashmole 782 and its missing pages take on even more urgency.
All right. I don't know. Did you feel a sense of urgency in this book?
If we're going to jump right into the plot, I had trouble with this one. Was slow again, but once I started sort of, I would say maybe halfway through, 60% through, I did. Like once they started really worrying about Benjamin, that's when I think the pace started to pick up, the tension started to pick up. I did have a little bit of trouble with the beginning of this book, like I did with the first one.
Yeah. For me, I literally started listening to this on audiobook like 2 days ago.
Oh, you can't
I
do
had
that with a series.
I had a 13-hour drive. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
like, well, maybe I started a little bit before that, but then I packed it away because I'm like, I'm going to listen for 13 hours. And then I did like 4 hours yesterday and then like 3 hours this morning. Now it's done.
Okay.
But it didn't feel painful until, well, the end was easy, but it was kind of slow paced, and I ended up having to increase the speed. I usually listen at 1.5, but then I had to increase it to 1.75. I was tempted to go
really
to 2.
fast. That's really fast.
That's
like
was
chipmunk
reading
fast.
Slow.
That's like chipmunk fast.
No, but see, look, it depends on the narrator's natural cadence. What if they talk slow anyway?
Yeah.
So you're just making it sound normal.
I don't know. I don't do audiobooks as much as you do. So once it gets above about 1.2, it usually starts to feel chipmunky to me.
Oh, no, I liked it better after I sped it up. I'm like, okay, this is a better cadence for me. And after, it only took like maybe 2 minutes to get used to it, and then it just sounded normal. But that helped me out because this is a long audiobook, very long. And I agree with you. I feel like things started getting much more interesting once Benjamin was a threat, and all of a sudden they were like, oh snap, this guy's crazy. He's going around.
Yeah, I didn't
doing the most.
I didn't see that coming when we met Benjamin in Prague in the second book. I did not sort of grasp how big his role was going to become.
Surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the bad seed kind of, because we kind of knew before that he had that blood rage.
Yeah.
And he was kind of the bad seed.
I mean, I was expecting it to be centered around the congregation and Peter Knox and the other two vampires, Gerbert and Domenico. I thought that was the fight, right? That wasn't the fight.
So at the end of the book, it was kind of, what was that? And I am horrible with names. And because of the way I consume this time, I did not write down the character names like I usually have a list. What is the witch name that attacked Diana?
Satu.
Okay. Satu ended up being a weaver.
Yeah, but a weak one.
But
or untrained, like that could have gone a whole different way, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting, but because Diana could have, I mean, she had to go back to the 1500s to learn how to use her power, right? Because there was nobody that could teach her. So I don't know if Satu was weak or if she just didn't have anybody to teach her, because Diana was thought to be pretty weak also before she learned how to do that.
Yeah. But somehow Satu was able to overcome the using, existing spells thing, because she was using spells. Although Diana could never figure out spells.
Yeah, it seemed like she had like a little of both, like her, but it wasn't really delved into too much in the book. It'll be interesting to see how the television show treats it, because that was one of the big differences in A Discovery of Witches, is what they did with the Satu character.
So maybe, we talked about that with the TV. Maybe they're making her not so bad because maybe she'll be an ally later when she figures out more about Diana. I don't know. That's at least 3 seasons away if they follow.
Yeah.
If they loosely follow the books.
Yeah. Well, she's definitely not an ally at any point in the books, right?
No, she's not. And actually, I really liked how Diana dealt with her in the end.
Me too.
She just opens the door and she's like, you don't deserve these powers. I'm going to I'm binding you right now. And she's like, you can't do that. She's like, done.
Watch me. Yeah.
Watch me, done. You can't do anything to anybody. And then she proceeded to say, we're going to tell all your business if you don't vote with us, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it was I was thinking about, getting ready for this podcast and thinking about why I liked some of the books better than others. And my favorite of the three was the second book, which in most trilogies, the second book struggles the most that I've read. Like the first trilogy sets up some kind of crazy thing that happens, right? And all the conflict and all the immediate fallout from whatever that conflict is. And then the third book is usually like the big showdown. And a lot of times the second book has all of this sort of setup for the third book, and it can be really slow. I didn't find that to be true in this trilogy. And I think what I liked the best about that middle book is that we really see Diana embrace her power and come into her power. And I think that that's a metaphor for a lot of women, entering their 30s and 40s and just kind of hitting their stride,
Mm-hmm.
And that was the part that I liked the best about the second book. Those were the parts that I liked a lot in the third book, is when she was actually using her powers. And in the case of Satu, it's power in a larger sense too. Like she has power in this magical community, and it's not just what she can weave, it's how she gets people to do the things that she wants them to do. And and you see that in a lot of her interactions. So you see it in towards the end of the book, where she's gone back to academia, and she's just got this confidence that she didn't have before, and she doesn't have that nervous energy. They don't show her like rowing for 10 miles a day, so I think that's the arc that was really satisfying to me through the whole trilogy, and those are the parts that I liked the best about the second and third book. But the Satu thing was a really big example of that, where it's not just that she has the magical power to bind her, it's that she has the stones to come out and say and use it and to get the outcome that she needs.
Well, it seems like Diana has taken it upon herself, her and the goddess, I guess she wields the goddess's will, to be judge and jury, and she does it. And then she basically told that other vampire, you wait, yours is coming too,
Yeah.
So
Javert.
Javert was like, had the nerve to act, look a little scared when she was like, oh, you're not free of this all the way, you just wait. And I mean, she is very different than she was in the beginning, 100% different. And even in this book, though, it seemed like she backslid just a little bit, but her aunt pulled her right back. She's like, no, she's starting to be intimidated. How can I run this family like Isabeau? I'm not like her. I can't do this. And she's like, okay, stop, put the brakes on. You are forgetting who you are, what you are. And she took her back to where it began in book 2. She went back to that space in London, although it looked different. Obviously time changes a place. But when she went there, she realized, whoa, there's a coven that already knows about me.
Yeah.
They've been following me,
Yeah, she's like famous there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, Diana Bishop, so glad to meet you. You're great. You're painted on the walls. I mean, she needed that dose of kind of reinforcement. Like, you are the shit. You've got this. You're not going to be like a vampire. You're not going to do things like a vampire, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I did like, and I think that was maybe another theme in these books. Like she takes, how do I put it? When she's learning to be what she is, right? She takes a lot of coaching from Isabeau. She takes a lot of elements from how Isabeau manages people. But she also takes other inputs as well. She's not ever going to be as cold and calculating as Isabeau, but she will stop hesitating to use her powers, right? And she took a lot of inputs from Goody, and I'm not going to remember the name.
Goody Alsop.
Yes, Goody Alsop in the second book, and even from her aunt, and the creatures, I think
Philip. She got some stuff from Philip.
Oh, a lot from Philippe. Yeah, and I'd like to say that she took some stuff from the Daemons, but I think that was a little weak as far as balance goes. But she did rely on Hamish, and she relied on Nathaniel's wife. What was her name? Emily?
No,
Emily was the other aunt. So that Daemon.
No, not Phoebe. That's Marcus's fiance.
Yep.
I can't think of her name. Right. There were so many people. Emily.
It was a big cast. No, I don't think so.
No, M died. It was. Who was it?
Right. So Nathaniel's wife.
Yeah. Right. Whoever that is.
His name is escaping me. Yeah. So I think, like a lot of our favorite urban fantasy heroines, a lot of her strength comes from her ability to make allies with everyone and not build walls based on bigotry, right? So we see that, I think, on a lot of urban fantasy, and I think we've come out about Mercy. We've talked about that with in the Mercy series particularly, and it's even more obvious there because there's so many different types of beings in that series, and in this one there's really 3, and the theme, or the thing that makes Matthew different and makes Diana different, is that they don't have this knee-jerk reaction about working with the others. Now Matthew used to, about witches, but he and Hamish have been friends for centuries, right? And that's not supposed to be allowed either. So, and I don't think that, before the trilogy starts, Diana had not really been exposed to other creatures much. She'd only had bad experiences with, like, the Daemons having crushes on her or whatever, kind of stalking her on campus. So,
and she didn't trust witches. You could tell, like, she had, it wasn't clear why she had the issue, but obviously she wanted nothing to do with witches. She didn't want anything to do with that community whatsoever. So she didn't. Well, the witches killed.
I guess she didn't know till later that witches killed her parents. But they had that invasive mind control thing, which would put me off of trusting them. But yeah, so
because even like thinking back to that, her aunt and M, they did not share with her a lot of the things she probably should have known. Because they later say, well, you wanted nothing to do with this world, so that information wasn't valuable to you. So, there was a lot she didn't know. She hadn't been around, those type of creatures. So
I think from a strictly world building perspective, you could nitpick quite a bit about this series. There's things that she would throw out that didn't seem consistent all the way through. Like there was one mention around the time when Baldwin was handing over the keys to the congregation to Diana, he said something about, like, their term of service is limited to 50 years. Like, that didn't make any sense at all. Like you could tell Gerbert and Domenico had both been there for a lot longer than that. And
and later Isabeau said, well, I guess Diana can do that until she tires of it. So
well, and Diana, who knows how long she's going to live. And that was something else that was never resolved, right? It's like, so Matthew is going to live indefinitely. And, Diana has maybe an extra 50 years by virtue of being a powerful witch. They talked about that a little bit. But
her kids are going to live a long time. They made a point of that because of the one woman who was also on the congregation who said Janet. Her grandmother was a child of a witch and a vampire. And she lived 200 and something years. And then she said she was 170.
Right.
So it's like as the blood gets weakened a little bit, your life gets short, the lifespans get shorter. But that made Diana know at least her kids will be around a couple hundred years probably.
Right. And if they drink some vampire blood, then that does something. But it was all kind of hand wavy,
Well,
and
that's another thing about her kids. Like Rebecca needed the blood. So Rebecca was drinking blood mixed with milk. And Philip, baby Philip, was just drinking milk.
Right.
So it seems like Philip is the witch and Rebecca is something mixed with a vampire.
Yep.
So her kids are very different.
Again, this is where I've read books that were tighter on the world building. This seems like maybe she was opening up a lot of like, who knows where this could go? Maybe I'll do another 10 books. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was her intention or not. But yeah, I mean, I thought there were some things in a book this long. It does get a little. I thought it was a little loose. I will say though that I think some of the reviews said that they tied up all the loose ends. I will say I thought that the whole Ashmole thing had a pretty satisfying and dramatic ending. Very dramatic. And I kind of liked how they manipulated the congregation at the end. So, and I liked that, they now have their own branch, like the Matthew is the scion.
Yeah.
But in the end, Baldwin kind of turned out to be a stand-up guy. I wasn't totally expecting that. What did you think about his kind of turnaround?
Well, I feel like the whole time he was, so he gives two shits about Matthew, basically. But I feel like he promised Philip. So while he didn't like accept Diana like necessarily as a sibling right away, I feel like he was kind of looking out for her anyway, you know what I mean? Just because of the promise he made. So he definitely changed from like what appeared to be a villain to more of like, I'm going to get along for the good of the world and for this family and what I've promised. But I mean, he's no one's favorite person and he's never gonna be, but he's done the right thing a couple of times over, so he's acceptable. He's welcome to birthday parties.
Did you get like a Sleeping Beauty vibe from that christening scene?
Now that you mention it, like I didn't think of it before, but yeah, it kind of did have that vibe.
Like all of the kings and queens from all the lands are coming to the castle, and except they didn't invite the evil fairy, and they, and Benjamin left them a gift in the study or whatever. I was getting a very strong Maleficent vibe there.
Oh, that's so cute. That was a crazy christening though. And then of course all the dirt comes out and everybody's like, what's going on? Who has blood rage? What's happening? Like, oh boy. What a christening. But Marcus had his chance to stand up and like say, hey, this is what's happening and get on board or don't.
Right.
And, it's like, wow.
That was quite a scene with Ransom in New Orleans. Did you think where he recited the names and it took him like 5 hours or something?
I feel like I've read something. Maybe was it Bones who remembers every person he killed? It was someone else.
I think so.
Yeah,
probably Bones. I don't remember that scene exactly, but
where he had a long list of people he killed, and I'm like, oh man, he sat there and just every name in chronological order. And which he tells the other guy, he's like, well, you can find the names easier if you had them listed chronologically instead of alphabetically. He was disgusted. He's like, how did you remember all those names? He was very upset, like pretty much trying to, I wonder if he was 2 seconds from stumping his foot on the ground because he was so
well, but that's
annoyed.
Pivotal, right? Because that goes to what Ransom thought of Matthew's character, right? So he thought Matthew was just cruel and cold, and that's not it at all. And I think there's some consistency in these worlds where vampires have to be dangerous in order to make them interesting, right? And then there's that whole balance thing, right? If vampires are unchecked, then they don't have any food left, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same question with popular zombie fiction, right? Once the zombies have turned everybody, then what? So
Yeah. And also vampires are kind of like survival of the fittest, right? Who is the strongest? It's all about power. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or have no scruples. But I think a lot of vampires and like these stories in general, they do what needs to be done. And it's not necessarily nice.
right, or typical of human justice, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I think that, I think Ransom, if this were a more typical urban fantasy, I would be looking for a Ransom spinoff, because New Orleans, oh my God, that sounds like a really awesome couple. I think there's some good stories there. I would love like a single novel centering on Baldwin. I keep coming back to him.
He's very unique.
At the end, I think I felt warmer towards him than what you said. I felt like he was an ally. Like he was bought into supporting Matthew and supporting Diana. And it made me question some of the stuff that he did earlier. Is like, well, was he just trying to make Matthew strong enough to do this? Was he kind of pushing him towards this? I don't know. But I do think there was bad blood, so to speak, between him and Matthew all along. Probably because Philippe made Matthew the leader of the Knights. Mm-hmm. So I think Baldwin expected that title and didn't get it.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, there was something about Baldwin, why Philip didn't want him to have that. He made him promise. Like, so there have many centuries of hating each other and not getting along. And Baldwin making Matthew bend to his will because he's the head of the family. Mm-hmm. So I don't think just because he did the right thing here, I don't think it's all washed away. I think they have some work to do. Like, if I could imagine this family going forward, but I do think he's not the same as he was in book 1. That's for sure.
That's a good point. Yeah, I just, because of the time walking element, it did kind of make me question a lot of those interactions. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's just that Baldwin kind of came around to fully embracing Diana as his sister, but Matthew was just kind of a
add-on.
Something he had to put up with.
Yes.
Because Matthew was not Baldwin's brother. He's not Philippe's blood.
Right.
He's Isabeau's blood. So
they're kind of like step siblings, kind of.
Yeah.
De Clermont. So, yeah, definitely. And definitely you could tell that Baldwin has a respect for Diana more now than he ever has, obviously, with him, giving her the key and making her the point person for all of that. But, even like a little bit earlier in that book, he's showing up to help her, basically, even if that means helping, her husband. Yeah. And doing so, he'll do it. But it's never going to be like Matthew and Baldwin, going off and having tea and hanging out. I just can't.
Yeah, Baldwin was definitely worried about the blood rage, right? So he was ready to take out the son, the boy from the what was his name? The artist?
Jack.
Jack.
Yeah. Oh, Jack. I felt bad for him. Didn't Jack, even though he's very old, he's old as well, because he's at least 300 years old, probably.
Right.
But he seems so childlike. Like, he seems so teenage-like still. Like, like the one point in the book, he's like, "Welcome back, Mom." He's like, "Okay, Dad, I'm going out." I'm like, "What?"
I'm going to go out with Ransom. So,
yeah. It was really like teenagey. And I'm like, oh, that was kind of cute. But I'm like, oh, he's 300 years old at least.
Yeah, but he was turned at age 20.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I think there's another place where things can be a little inconsistent, because Marcus also looked very young, but was a full-grown man in the context of the society when he turned, which
Mhm.
was the Revolutionary War. So late 1700s. Whereas Jack would have been the same, right? At age 20, he would have been a full-grown um, man for the time, although he was scrawny because he was underfed, right? Because
Yeah.
he grew up poor. But yeah, I don't know. Again, if I wanted to be super nitpicky, I could pick apart a little bit some things. There was another point where after the twins had been born, they were getting ready to go somewhere, and I guess Jack wandered off or something, and Diana was like, "Oh, her children, if one just when she got them corralled, when she got one back on track, the other one wandered off." I'm like, "Who are you talking about? Your babies are not wandering anywhere. They're
Yeah.
like a week old." They're
Yeah.
there was a couple points where I felt like the author did not know what it was like to have a newborn. Or
I would
didn't know.
agree. I
Yeah.
mean, not even just that, but like some of the ways she would describe the mannerisms or looks that the children would give seem like
Mhm.
those kids are much older. Like those are looks that 2 and 3-year-olds give you, or like
Mhm.
the intelligence that they think, or the intelligence you think you're seeing, really it could
Yeah.
be your own
Yeah.
thoughts reflected on them. I
Yeah,
don't
or the
know.
first time Rebecca smiled or something it was just like,
Like she looks look disgruntled or upset, or or she looks at her father like oh just some of the way she described how the
yeah.
children were
Yeah.
seemed like they were older than what they
Yeah.
actually were.
Yeah.
So
And they're magical, so I guess you can explain everything away with that. But I was like, these babies are not wandering anywhere. If they are, then that's a whole nother magical thing that you have not gone into adequately.
Lord have mercy.
If they're levitating or something.
I mean, can you imagine what you're in for? So you have like witches and I mean, like seriously, even I think Matthew or somebody mentioned, what do you do with a 2-year-old with blood rage? Like, how do you control that? Like,
Well,
what
Diana had an
happens?
answer, right?
Yeah, she did. She said, "I'll bind them. I don't care."
Yep. But
she will.
but she had to get to that level of power and capability of using the power, to be able to
Mhm.
make that statement. Because if that had happened sort of before she had dealt with some of the cold realities of this magical world, like Baldwin wouldn't have believed her, and I wouldn't have believed her. Like, you're not going to do that to your babies,
But
but she
she
would now.
will.
She
Yeah,
will
she
now
totally.
because
It's,
she's seen Benedict and how crazy
yep.
he is, and I don't know.
Even Matthew, like after they got him back from dealing with Benjamin, it's like at the end of the book, he's still trying to bring himself down.
Hmm.
It's like years and years and centuries of hard work of control
Yep.
just dissipated.
Yep. Well,
So,
it started, right at the beginning of the trilogy. I'll give him that, where, his eyes went black and he's like, "Walk past me slowly, don't run."
mhm,
There was an indication right there what we were dealing with. And I
mhm,
think at that point seemed like, okay, that's normal vampire stuff, but it's not. That's the blood rage.
mhm. Which is a whole nother thing. But, I guess since Diana's so powerful now, if they keep making children, family, and they end up with blood rage, I guess she can just go around and just bind everybody with blood rage. They can't control themselves. I mean, that's no way I would want to live, but, stop
Well,
making kids.
well, yeah, but I mean, Matthew's got a whole generation of children, right? So he's got Ransom, and he's got a bunch of unnamed children in New Orleans, and
Grandchildren.
Jack, and that Father Andrew, and um, Marcus. So Matthew can stop making vampires,
Hmm.
even if he has one or two more natural children. But he doesn't necessarily have the ability to make sure that none of his uh, vampire children spawn more vampires, right? Other
True.
than telling them not to.
True. And I mean, now and you never know what you're going to get because we know the magic formula. It was revealed. You have to have someone with that affliction, a vampire with that bloodlust affliction, and a weaver. That
Right.
combination of mating spawns children.
Well, right, but
So,
also it also controls whether the bloodlust shows up or not, right? So there was a point in the genetic workup of like Isabeau versus Matthew, because Isabeau's human parents did not have any, was it demon blood that turns it into to the bloodlust? There
I
was
don't
some kind of
remember.
marker that you have to have as a human in order for the bloodlust to like take
Yeah, and
hold,
that
as
made me
opposed.
wonder, was it like the serial killer gene? I mean, what was it? Like, what is it? What is the gene? And I missed like what the gene was.
I don't know. I can't remember. I want to say maybe it was Damon because they had to bring that into it somehow. But
But then you're not
um,
human. If you have that, you're not human.
like it was just some kind of. It could have been like far back in your genetics. It didn't have to be that you were a demon. It could have been that you. It was some kind of like recessive genetic. Blah 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 blah.
Okay. Well,
Um,
someone explain it to me. Like, tell me what page. Tell me what page, because I'm not going back to look for it. But if you could tell me what page they explain that, because like I said, I was listening to this in clumps, huge clumps.
yeah,
So if you can
yeah.
explain, just tell me where to find it, and I will go back and correct my understanding.
I think
Because
it came out. I want to say it was at the congregation, but I know Matthew was there too. So there was a point where Diana knew the answer because she has the book of life inside her body and she can ask any question and know the answer, which is kind of weird. We haven't talked about that yet. So she knew the answer and she gave some hints to Chris and Miriam so that they would go find it in the genetic workup, right? So there was a point where she said something, she was saying a couple things in her internal narrative, like she knew why, but she was waiting for the scientific proof, right?
result, yeah.
And then
I
there was a
remember
point
that.
where she gets this big, thick envelope from Chris and Miriam, and she's like, okay, this is how it goes. And that was how they convinced the congregation to give up the covenant or whatever it was that made them
Okay.
all promise not to intermarry.
Yeah.
Because instead of keeping the races strong like they thought it would, it was actually causing them to die out because they needed all three strains in order to be able to reproduce.
Hmm. Well, I guess we're gonna have a
Uh,
bunch of in this world, in this setting, you're gonna have a bunch of random babies. Who knows what they are? More vampire, more witch, more demon, more vampire. I mean, it's gonna be a whole combination of kids running around here. Um, who knows?
yeah, I do think that with the genetic workup research factor of the story, it seems like it would be possible, like if you were going to turn someone, if you had the luxury of waiting, like say with Phoebe, they could do a workup on Phoebe and see if she had any of these markers and see if she was at risk for the blood rage, right? And it seems like she's going to get turned anyway because Marcus is so in love with her, um, but if it were some other circumstances where it was like, oh, this person really wants to be a vampire, and I'd like to turn them, and let's see what the risks are, then they might be able to make a decision on yes or no based on whether they were going to
Let's
be a
apply to be a
carrier.
vampire.
Hmm?
Like, let's
Yeah,
apply to be a vampire.
there's a bunch of there's a bunch of what's the word I'm looking for? Worlds where that's a thing, right? So there's a bunch of vampire series where there are humans who want to be vampires, and there's some kind of process that they have to go through to qualify.
Oh my God. Well, Diana's going to have her hands full because people of centuries and centuries of vampires being able to turn who they want at will to some type of organized fashion of, let's make sure you're not carrying this gene before you turn anyone, or
Can they though? I mean, can they turn people at will, or is that like because there's that big sort of paterfamilias, the head of the family is supposed to sort of be in control of at least some of that, right?
Well,
It
they
doesn't
talked
seem like
about Marcus. They talked about him going off,
true.
and even Benjamin going off and just making a bunch of children.
Yeah, and but that was kind of a plot point where as a failure of Matthew's, right? So Matthew and what's her name had to come in and cull the herd in New Orleans significantly, and then that was a big plot point about how he should have kept track of Benjamin and not rejected him, not sent him out on his own. Because
But see, I'm not sure
look what
if
happened there.
I'm not sure if it was because Benjamin made all these kids or if it was because he made these vampires and just let them go. Like, no, he didn't teach any of them. It's like you just turn people and say, figure it out. I think he did that with a lot of people, which made for a lot of bad vampires that he had to go clean up behind.
Right. So I think that was one of Matthew's big character failings, right? That's what caused Philippe's death. That's what caused all the danger to his family, was his failure, his poor decision in, making Benjamin a vampire as an act of revenge, and then not helping him or not managing him. Like, put the dude in prison or something, but don't just turn him loose on the world. That's dumb.
It's called karma. Like, what do you think's gonna happen when you do that to somebody? Yeah. And then to find out how Philip died and who killed him, it's like, what?
By that point, I wasn't super surprised about that. I was surprised about Father Andrew turning out to be Benjamin's spawn. Right. And that
that was surprising. Like, what? He turned you? Okay.
And that, Andrew was actually part of Matthew's line. Mm-hmm. Which
actually, that whole Father Andrew Hubbard thing was kind of weird.
It was definitely weird. Like, he was kind of this creepy bad guy, and then he was kind of ambiguous. Maybe he'll be okay. But shouldn't Matthew have known that it was his line, like smelling him or something?
Yeah, you should be able to smell Benjamin like in his blood or a part of him somehow. Like, how do you not know that? Yeah, that was inconsistent too.
Plot hole.
I mean, if you, I think, want to really get into it, like you said earlier, there are probably quite a few plot holes we can just question. Things start breaking down when you start looking at them too closely.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's a good story, and I did think it had a good resolution. What did you think of Ashmole and how that all went?
I thought that was kind of interesting. That it was so funny, like the scene where, after the book closes, Diana opens, she pries it open. She's like, "It's blank. What happened?" And everyone's looking at her like, well,
oh, girl.
Well, it's on you.
Holy, whoa.
You're altered now. You're in an altered state. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I expect no less. I mean, I feel like it wasn't entirely surprising because we've seen her kind of pick up ink before and
right. But it didn't incorporate into her body.
No, but because she's so able to do, she's a weaver, so she can do anything. She's an exception to every rule because she's a weaver. So
now, wait a minute. I will say that the idea of a living book that is absorbed into a human person is a new one on me. Like, I have not seen that concept anywhere else ever before. So I will give some kudos to Harkness for coming up with something completely different than what I've seen. Maybe it's out there. I'd love if any readers have seen that kind of thing before to hit us up with some references. But I've never seen that, and I thought that was a pretty, after 1,200 pages of buildup on this Ashmole book, it needed to be big, and I think it hit the mark for that.
I mean, so she's so powerful now because of that book, because of the knowledge of the book that she has access to without even really trying.
Right. She knows everybody's genealogy back for hundreds of years, thousands maybe.
That's going to make her a weird mom. You know, like her kids are going to be like, you know, you got like friends, just ignore my mom. She's a little weird. You know what I'm saying? Like just
But only if she asks.
Yeah.
She has to formulate the question in her
Yeah.
mind for the knowledge to show up. So
I mean, she's already using it on Philip. Like every time he looks like he want to say something, she's like finagling some stuff, trying to figure out what the kid's saying. I'm like, okay.
Ask me no questions. I'll tell you no lies.
Yeah.
Don't ask her a question.
No, don't do it. No. Like I only make statements around you. I'm not asking you anything. That's it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I thought that was I liked the way that tied up. I thought Peter Knox was going to be a bigger villain than he was.
It seemed like it was easy for her to take him down at the end there.
Yeah. It took a little bit of preparation, but I did like the scene where he was like, "Oh, you got nothing. You got nothing. You got oh shit, I'm done."
Oh no.
like he was talking smack right up until the very end when she unwove him. Like I liked that scene.
He really underestimated her, and he really didn't know everything she had going on. So he was dumb. He should have been more prepared for a fight, more prepared for a battle. And he really was caught off guard and just taken out like that, really, when it came down to it. It didn't
I
even
don't think he knew about weavers. Like he had no idea what she was going to do or what she was doing, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, they didn't know that the book was on her either. So at least he didn't, because remember, she was concerned like, oh, they're going to all run and tell, you know, everyone that was at the congregation is going to run and tell. And I can't remember if it was Gallaglass or somebody else that said, oh no, they're all being watched. They're still on the island. So they didn't have a chance to like run and tell Benjamin and Peter.
Yeah, I don't know if I totally bought into that, is that there was no other way to communicate. I mean, these are some magical people, right? But there's spells and so I didn't know if
cell phones. There's cell phones.
Well, I thought there was something about how there was no reception for cell phones on the island.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I could research cell coverage in Venice. That would be funny.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
In point of fact, cell reception is very unpredictable where there's a lot of water, because the signals bounce and reflect off of the water. So sometimes it can go like really far, and sometimes you get nothing. So tidbits that you didn't know or care about. But I didn't totally buy that was going to protect them 100%. But again, go with it. It was a quick moment in the book. But I like to think that Peter Knox is a symbol for the patriarchy, and that someday soon women will unweave it when they don't even know it's coming, because
why not? Yeah. Like, I'll crush you under my hand. You won't even see it coming.
But just, and not men, but the patriarchy, you know, and this sort of clueless, I'm more powerful than you, even though I don't even know what's going on with you. And you've got nothing. You've got nothing. You've got nothing. I've got everything. Oh, wait.
He's very conceited. He's very conceited and bold. And he just thought no witch could come be better than him, including her, because he said, hey, when I opened up your parents, you know, he's like, I defeated them, so what are you gonna do? kind of thing. So
if I had opened you up like I opened up your parents, that was kind of inevitable. And that that was another thing, is like, seemed like unnecessarily gruesome, right? So we never, and I don't know that I wanted it, but there was no explanation of why that would be necessary to get knowledge or to other than just torture. So now that I'm looking back on it, I'm like, but why though?
Yeah. And I mean, even M's death was really dumb. He just wanted a spell book, and so you kill her because you can't get a spell book? I mean, like, really?
He's just a bad guy.
Yeah, he is. And Benjamin is the worst.com as well. Like, the whole torture of Matthew was pretty yikes. Like,
creative, shall we say.
Yeah. And I mean, he's like, and not to mention throughout the whole book, he's like doing things to female witches on camera. And he's like, look at me. Ha ha ha. What you going to
I am so evil. I am
know.
evil.
I know. It's just dreadful. And he's threatening to get Diana and do all kind of crazy things to her. I'm like, oh man, come on. Can you be any more gross and cringy?
I thought it was interesting that they brought in the Golem of Prague into the mythology, and that Benjamin was actually the reason it was needed, because that is an existing legend. Yeah, I mean it's like a fairy tale or something, right? It's a story that has existed a long time before urban fantasy genre was born, really.
Oh, well, I never heard of it before urban fantasy. So I'm like, I don't know what the Golem of Prague is until I think the first time I read about it was in Mercy's book.
Yeah. No, I had read about it before, references to it, but not the direct story of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, so in the end, Benjamin got, thank goodness.
Finally.
Because he couldn't live. There's no way.
No.
Yeah. And I just love that Diana was the one to do it. She took him out. She took out Peter. She going around. I mean, she is just like a powerhouse now, starting from someone who didn't want to know anything about magic, barely used it. And when she did, she was like accidental on purpose use it. It's like,
oh, I just need this book.
Right.
Nobody's looking, right?
And now she's like a force to be reckoned with. She could take basically anybody down, I think. I don't think there's anyone that can beat her at this state with all the different things between the book, her weaver abilities.
Probably not. I mean, yeah. I mean, the way the world has been built, we don't know everything about all the witches everywhere, right? But we do know that, like, she's part of this prophecy, and she's the one that will start. She's the last one and will be the first one, right? So she's going to spawn this new generation of weavers and less insane demons and more fertile vampires.
Yeah,
because
I mean, between, like, also don't forget about like the knots on her hands. So like she's like the creator and the destroyer. She can do everything. And it's like she's got the dark magic and the regular magic. I mean, she's got this huge range of things that there's no witch more powerful than her, at least at this point in time. Not to say that there won't be future weavers that are more powerful than her, but
right. I think
all the others are dead unless they're weak and they don't know anything.
Right. So Janet Gowdy has a weaver in her lineage, but she does not seem to be a weaver herself. And then there's Satu.
Yes.
So it's interesting that Benjamin never got a hold of her, right? I guess he didn't really know what he was looking for. So the ones that he found were just random chance.
Of course, Satu kept it a secret. And I don't even know if she absolutely knew she was a weaver, or maybe she suspected she was a weaver, because like the book was saying, most of those witches died out. So there wasn't really any.
It kind of rushed past that.
Hey, you're a weaver, right? Like,
yeah, kind of rushed past that whole business. Like, like it was weak and recessive with her. She was a pretty strong witch otherwise, right? She was on the council, and she, did that torture session with Diana, and she was Peter Knox's little protege there for a while.
How did he not know she was a weaver?
I don't think he knew about weavers. He didn't know Diana was a weaver.
Crazy. Yeah, but how are you so high up and you don't know anything? That's so stupid. I mean, it just seems like he wouldn't. I mean, like, even if you've heard, okay, once upon a time I heard a story, maybe not that, I don't know. I guess they've been so gone so long that I guess it's possible, but it just seemed weird.
Well, and that thing about Diana's father also being a weaver kind of came out of left field to me. Like, we knew he was a time walker, right? But we never saw him weave a spell, right? And I'm like maybe he carried the gene, but I don't think you can. I don't see where you could see that he was a weaver anywhere, right?
She told us, Harkness told us, so we're supposed to just accept it,
Oh, okay.
I guess. I mean, because I agree with you. Like, when we found out he was a weaver in book 2, I'm like, he is? I just...
Maybe it's because he had a familiar. That's how you can tell.
Yeah. But she didn't know he had a familiar until when she saw him in the past. Like, I don't think Diana...
Did Goody Alsop tell us? Because she met him when he time walked, right? So maybe that's how they found out. The details of that book are a little fuzzy for me. I went through it a little. It's been a while ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just know he did have a familiar. But it's weird. Like, Diana's familiar left her. Like, Cora left. Cora was like, hey, I'll do this for you. I'll help you find this book. But in exchange, I'm out.
That was really interesting. Like, what? Yeah. Like, that was kind of out of left field too, and it had no real arc to it. Like, why wouldn't the familiar just go do what she wanted it to do and still be the familiar? Is it just that it was that big of a task? I don't know. It was kind of cool.
Familiar was around. I mean,
right. But it was less intelligent than Cora. It seemed like.
I don't know. So it only wants to be free if it's smart enough. I don't know.
Good point. That's kind of gross.
I don't know. It's kind of odd.
Yeah, I mean, it is. So there's this whole element of like servitude or whatever that was maybe not totally voluntary for the familiars, right? But a fire drake is like a mythical thing. It doesn't even does it actually exist outside of being a familiar? I don't know. Like I said, I thought that was a very cool dramatic scene where Cora started talking, but there was no arc to it, so it left me scratching my head a little bit, like, why did that just happen?
Yeah, and then Cora's like, oh, I'm gonna go hang out somewhere until other familiars show up, and we'll just all hang out. Like, what?
Yeah, some other dimension.
I don't know what you're talking about right now, but okay. Whatever.
Right. That was a little weird. I didn't hate it, but I also felt like a little,
Yeah. And that is, again, like, it's like when you start to really put too much thought into it, it starts to kind of break down just a little bit.
Just a little.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I think this would be a great time to take a very quick break, hear from our sponsors. And when we return, we will finish up our conversation. We will rate the book. And that's it. So stay with us.
It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24-monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop, and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24-monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop, and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item.
This podcast is brought to you by Ragu Old World Style Traditional Sauce. A great sauce starts with the best ingredients. Ragu Old World Style Traditional Sauce is that great sauce. Inspired by our founder's original recipe, Ragu Old World Style Traditional Sauce is made with delicious ingredients, including vine-ripened tomatoes, chopped onions, garlic, and olive oil, simmered together for the authentic taste you and your family will want to come back to. For recipes, sauces, and mealtime inspiration, visit ragu.com.
You've been on the road for hours, covered 527 miles, listened to 3 podcasts, had 2 calls with your mom and 1 with your sister, and you're really hungry. And look at that. There's a McDonald's 1 mile up ahead meal. There's a meal for every moment at McDonald's.
Enjoy a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit and bacon, egg, and cheese McGriddles. Get 2 of the same or 1 of each for $4. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with combo meal. Single item at regular price.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are going to continue on the Book of Life. And I did say it right this time, the Book of Life. Okay, so let's just continue on. During the break, we were just saying like some of the other things we want to talk about. And Nicola, what was one of the ones you want to cover?
Well, I wanted to bring in the character of Chris, and I forget his last name, but the human that that had the research project that they got involved with back in the United States. And I thought that was kind of wild, right? That they gave him this clue and they let him in on the secret. And all of a sudden he's got this like, maybe 20 people, like this massive crew of research assistants. And there's like, oh, by the way, how many of you are demons? Like, and so-and-so is, but she doesn't know it yet. So, yeah. I liked Chris as a character a lot. He's like this kick-ass, brilliant human researcher that just happens to be like, there's all this academic stuff that kind of comes together, like Diana's the alchemy expert and Matthew has all this medical and genetic research going on. And then Chris is sort of in the same field, I guess. I forget what he was researching before, but I did like that they pulled Miriam into his orbit and
they were flirting.
They were flirting and the two of them like just clicked immediately and like become this powerhouse team. I really liked that. There were a lot of sparks flying there.
Because I felt at first Chris might have liked Diana a little bit, but that quickly dissipated. He goes to see her and she's like married and he's like, whoa, you're like pregnant, like way pregnant, like what? Yeah. And you married him? He was very put out.
Well, he grounded the story a little bit, brought it back to kind of human terms. And he was like, you just kind of disappeared for 6 months. You didn't answer any of your emails. You didn't show up on campus. You're not listed as a teacher. Nobody knew what happened to you. What the hell? And I'd lost track of that a little bit. I think it did occur to me like towards the end of the first book or maybe somewhere in the second book. I was like, well, what about her whole life? And we talked about how little time had passed since she met him. Like the first 2 books took place the first book took place within like 4 weeks, right?
Very fast.
And then the second book, it's weird because they time traveled, right? They spent about a year in
like 10 months or something. They were gone.
Something less than a year in Elizabethan England. And then I get kind of like lost about when they came back and how much time passed. But anyway, I liked that Chris kind of brought everything back to human terms and was like, no, you disappeared. We were worried. And now look, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
So I like that about Chris. Yeah. I think it's always a little risky when you take a magical book or an urban fantasy series and you try to make it sciencey, I think you always risk screwing it up there a little bit. I think that Harkness did a pretty good job of using science to support the theory, partly because it was so technical that very, very few were going to be able to spot any fallacies. Like if you've got a geneticist researcher reading this book, they might have some issues with it. But I don't know how many genetic researchers, PhDs in genetics are going to be reading this series.
Right. I mean, it was well balanced. So you had like the technical stuff that kind of explained things. But again, for us regular folk that don't have PhDs in genetics, we're not like, it's not too difficult where we can't really understand how A and B connect. So And they didn't draw it out and make it boring, because sometimes if you get too far into the weeds.
I felt like I was in the weeds a little bit a couple times.
Really?
And yeah, they talked about this kind of marker and that kind of marker and there was some other term like the non-structural or the junk DNA or some kind of stuff. Like I was in the weeds a little bit in some of that, and I felt like it might have been a little bit deliberate. Like, we're going to talk about this stuff that's so complicated you're not going to get it, and so you're just going to have to trust us when we say
muddle
we
the
found
waters
the answer.
a little bit. Let's cover this plot hole with science.
We're going to science the shit out of this. So I liked it, but I don't know. It's always interesting when you try to combine those worlds, and it reminds me a little bit of the old saying that any sufficiently advanced technology appears to be magic or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe another trilogy, like, well, it's not actually magic. Here's the quantum physics on how it all works.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so what we talked about, I like Chris. I did like his character a lot. I liked his contribution to the story. But I forgot I wanted to talk about Gallowglass. I feel bad for Gallowglass, man.
Yeah, that was deeply sad, just like it's just this minor chord that twangs through the whole book.
Mm-hmm. And it's like somehow, some way, at some point in time, he like fell for Diana. And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so you met her when she was full on adult. Maybe you were already attracted to her back in the 1500s, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But then you spend the next, bit of time watching her grow up. So,
well, 300 years go by.
Right. 300 years go by. Yeah. So it's like maybe he was pining over her that whole time, the 300 years, and then she's born, and then he's like watching her grow up, trying to help her kind of like in a paternal way, but it's weird. It's kind of weird. But
yeah, initially I kind of thought he's felt like he calls her auntie, and it felt like when he was watching her grow up that it was a little bit like an uncle, kind of or a fairy godfather sort of watching out for her, and I didn't get like a pining vibe from that, which is good because that's a little creepy. But once she was an adult, and he had her likeness tattooed, and he's like, oh, you weren't supposed to see that. And yeah, it was very tragic, star-crossed lover kind of thing going on there. It made me wonder, like, without being gross, like, would Rebecca be a match for him someday?
Oh, that's like, not even be funny. I don't think you've read the Twilight, but the series, but that's a little wolfy.
Oh,
like
yeah?
with the Twilight, because like the wolves do this thing where they imprint is how they use that term in the Twilight books. Mm-hmm. And it's not like gross when the person they imprint on are children, but as they grow up and mature, it changes from like, I guess, like you said, an uncle or fairy godfather or, grandmother, whatever you are to
Platonic.
that person. It changes and morphs over time until, hey, I'm a full-on adult and you're cute and I'm cute and let's hook up. So it's like, okay. So I guess that could happen here, but it kind of feels like that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I think it's probably better that we don't know. This does not seem like a good candidate to be an ongoing book a year series. So I kind of like that it's a little bit wrapped up, but I do want in my own imagination for Gallowglass to find love and to get over Diana.
Yeah, 100%. He can just, when he calls her auntie, he means it. That is it. Instead of using that word as a reminder that he can't have her, just really have that family feeling with her instead of a I like you kind of feeling.
Yeah. So that was very sad. And his character is amazing, right? He's like this Viking, and I would love his book, as long as it has a happy ending.
Yes, I agree. I feel like he's a cool friend. unfortunately, I put him in the friend zone. Yeah, I'm glad you're in the friend zone already.
So did Diana.
Yeah, you're friend zone, man. You're a good friend, which is so sad for him. Again, I'm like, oh, well.
I could move him out of the friend zone without too much trouble, I think.
Okay, well, that's good. So he's got some options. He's got some options. Good. Yeah, so lastly, I did want to talk about how many characters. Okay. This book, and there were a lot before, but I feel like this book really exploded with the amount of characters, especially toward the end. Like the last third of the book or something. Everybody was kind of around. What did you think about the amount of characters?
It was definitely a lot. I think that, it's a testament to the author's skill that they all felt pretty distinct. Like I didn't think of, these three people are all kind of the same. I would say that, some of them are pretty minor, and so they serve a purpose, but did they really need to be sort of threaded through the whole book? I don't know. Ransom is a good example of that. He had a really key scene, and then there was mentions of him here and there, like when Jack was going to go out and party with him or something,
But honestly, all of that could have been taken out. It could have just been said, he went to get control of Marcus's things. He went to that New Orleans. We didn't have to have that, and we wouldn't have missed it if it weren't there.
I think you're right, because we already know that Matthew has this strong moral center. So this was kind of about convincing Ransom that he did. And I don't know. I think it goes to sort of how traumatic of a life that Matthew has had. But I think you're right. I think that, if you put on an editor hat and you wanted to slim this book down by 200 pages, that byway could have been shrunk down, like where he has to leave Diana and he's dealing with his own blood rage because he's separated from her, and then he's got to get I think it could have been slimmed down. I love Miriam, but we didn't really need Miriam. I mean,
if we never saw her again, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal,
right? So even if like Miriam and Marcus could have been collapsed into the same character, and had one less there. Although then you lose the potential romance, I guess. But
yeah,
I mean, I did like all the characters, but just the sheer number of them was a lot.
It was, and it starts to be hard, like remembering. And I mean, I think it's fine because we're fresh off the book. But like, I don't know, in 6 months from now, I'll be like, who was that again? And I'll confuse who did what. And, I just know it. Like, because even for me, like this was a reread and I felt like it was the first time. It was 5 years ago when I read it the first time, but.
And Fernando, right? Like, did we need Fernando?
No.
He's a cool character, but I think some of it might just be to bring up the point that Diana is now the matriarch of this huge, loosely knit family, right? She's got maybe that was the reason for having so many characters, is just to kind of underline the fact that she's kind of the fulcrum for all of it.
Yeah. I did like Fernando's character though, especially when he decided to like officially join the family. He like gets down on his knee and he's like, I'll serve the family. And she's like, I guess I'm supposed to say something official. I don't know what, but.
Yep. Well, it's interesting that there was there were two major same-sex relationships in this series, which is, I want to say, which is really cool. And one of them was set, 500 years ago. I think he was medieval, right? So he went on the Crusades and stuff. So that's more like 1,000 years ago. So I thought that was a really nice point to include. So it's an inclusive. I think inclusivity is a big theme for the whole book, and there's it hits a couple of major axes on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, which I enjoyed that. I'm glad it was there. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the only person that stood out to me as African American was Chris.
Yeah.
Was there any others and I'm just missing it?
I think they talked about Miriam's curly hair. And what about the female vampire that tried to kill Matthew?
Now, see, that is on the TV show. She was, but I don't remember. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't remember her being distinctly described as someone that I would consider non-white.
I'd have to look, but I think I had the impression that, because it was kind of set in the American South, that she might have been like a slave from New Orleans or I think I was expecting that and I didn't see it, but I don't know. But you're right. There was a lack there.
Yeah. But I did like seeing the couples of the same sex couples. We had 2 of them, of which unfortunately neither one of them were actually together for the duration of the book.
Now, come to think of it, one of them died in both cases. So maybe that's not the greatest representation. I don't know.
Yeah. And when Sarah went off on vacation with, who was it she went with? Was it
Agatha?
So was that just demon? Like 2 besties hanging out, or was there something else there?
I think that's open-ended.
Okay. Because I'm like, Sarah and Agatha on vacation? Like, what? Okay.
I think there's an implication that it's more than friends, right? Because they came out and said, well, it's been more than a year since M's death, and it's nice
right
to see
behind
you.
that,
so, yeah. So I think that there's definitely potential there. But it doesn't have to be on the page, and I thought that was okay, because,
But Agatha, well, I guess, hey, anything is anything, because Agatha is Nathaniel's or Nathan's mother, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, hey.
Yeah. That's another character that was kind of in and out without if I were going to be critical about the number of characters, right? You kind of have to say who's on the congregation, right? But I think Agatha could have been more interesting, right? She's in the background for a few things in the second and third book, but and again, we talked about this, I think, on the last book, that like the demons seem like an afterthought everywhere, right? They're not really well balanced between the witches and the vampires, and it might have been better to just, if you were going to start this whole thing over, edit them all the way out.
So just have it be witches and vampires?
Yeah.
Because they were kind of an afterthought. I agree with you. They definitely did not have equal footing as far as the other creatures, as far as being on the page or importance, really.
Right. And like the only thing that was like Hamish was their financial advisor, and he's like this financial wizard. You could put that down to something other than being a demon, right? So I felt, when I get to the end here, like if I were going to be super critical and get out a really big red pen, I'd be like, Deborah, what are you thinking here? Why?
I mean, they just really, a regular old human accountant could have been Hamish, technically.
Yeah. You can account for it. Let me speak. Yeah. So there was nothing necessary about the whole demon part of the mythology. There was nothing, they were not very powerful in the congregation, and they don't have that much interesting things going on in the human world. They kind of represent the brilliant artists and brilliant scientists, right? But that's not a critical plot point at any point.
Like your superpower is just being extra smart and creative?
Yeah. And insane.
Yeah, and insane. Like, you can't really do anything. You can't really, the demons seem weak, like
There's
in comparison, right? Vampires can chase you down, bite your neck off, drink your blood. Witches can
Live
put spells on
forever.
you, right? But the demons are just like, well, I'm just really smart.
Well, apparently they're long-lived, right? Because Hamish has been
Yeah.
around for a couple hundred years, but
I'm smart with great genes, so I stay young for longer. I don't know.
so I
mean,
maintain that the demons were unnecessary.
I agree with you.
So there's 25% of the books can go away right there.
Yeah, clean it up, tighten it up. I mean, honestly, all three of these books, they are a commitment.
That is for sure. That is for sure.
And to just keep going through, it's like, and to me, like, okay, well, are you ready to rate? Let's rate.
I think
if you're ready. Okay.
Yeah. I'm giving this one a 4. I didn't like it as much as the middle book. It did start out kind of slow for me. But I thought she did a good job of wrapping up all of the plot points, of providing a really dramatic climax for the Benjamin plot line and the Ashmole plot line and the whole sort of health of the species plot line. So I did think that she did a good job of wrapping all that up, which was hard because it's very ambitious. And she brought in some things that I've not seen before, which I think I give her some pretty big kudos for that. So.
Okay. Nice. I also rated this a 4. I rated a 4 the first time. I'm doing it again the second time. Overall, I enjoyed the book. Like I said, I didn't need to speed it up when I was listening on audio because it was dragging just a bit. And that might have just been the narrator's cadence. But I think the narrator did a good job anyway. After I sped it up, I had no additional issues. I think that Harkness does a good job kind of, I guess, weaving the stories together, even though...
I see what you did there.
Yeah, Weaver. So she did a good job with that, even though, like we said, there was an abundance of characters that might not have been necessary. I do like Diana. I think I like Diana's character. I like Matthew's development. At the end of it, he's still Matthew, but he's not as hard-headed seeming. He knows his wife is strong and she'll take care of business. And he repeatedly tells his kids, Mommy solves everything. She's the best, isn't she? She will fix it. He knows what's up.
He can be the head, but she's the heart.
Yes, exactly. And I think that is what sealed everything together for me. And it was more about the world of the creatures than it was just them two. And that also kind of made everything make sense.
Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about Matthew and Diana's relationship together. And I do like sort of at the end, he's been the enforcer for so many centuries. He was the assassin, right? But now she's got like the ultimate strong arm weapon, right? She can spellbind or she can unweave an individual person. And so it doesn't have to be him going and killing somebody in order to maintain order. And he helped her understand power and how to use it and how to embrace it and how to not to be afraid of it, right? But to still have, ethics about what you do. And so I think that they both were very complementary in that respect, where they both sort of took on some of the other's burden while also helping, the other one become a more fully realized person. Yeah. To get a little woo-woo psychological there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, honestly, they did learn from each other and they did grow from, being in a relationship together for, I guess, through all those trials and tribulations. You either grow apart or grow together, and they grew together. And I don't know, I like them as a couple. When it's all said and done, I like them together. I like their little cute kids, even though one's going to be like a terror, you can tell. And I think that setting it, even though the nice, tidy little ending, but because I've read the next book, But you don't have to. If you want to stop here, like they call it, it's not All Souls. It's
an epilogue.
I can't remember the name. But the title is Times Convert, and I don't remember the name of the series. So it continues in this world with these characters, but you can just stop here and be happy with it and not want more, or you can't. But I don't, honestly, I'm ready to tuck these characters away and move on. What about you?
I think so. I mean, I might read the fourth book at some point, but I'll probably let these settle for a little bit first.
Yeah, because it's another whopper. It's because they let Deborah Harkness write until her heart's content. So All Souls Universe, that's what the thing is. So I don't even know how many books are expected, but that came out in June 2019. So if you're curious and you want to continue, you can check that out. But let's see what I rated it. I didn't enjoy it as much according to my rating. That's all I'm going to say about it. You guys can find out on your own if you want to. But
yeah, Amazon calls it book 4 of 4. So
yeah, if you look on Goodreads, I'm surprised they don't match because Amazon owns Goodreads. But on Goodreads, it says, where'd it go? I just clicked on it.
So this is about Marcus and Phoebe.
Yeah. But you also see a little bit of Diana and Matthew and Sarah and Miriam. You see some of they're around. There's just so many characters. They're going to be around. It's not an isolated story. But I think
it's not part of the arc. I can see that.
Right, correct. So they're around doing things, keeping maintaining the peace and all that other stuff they do. But I guess this is more focused on Marcus and Phoebe. So fun times.
Cool.
Yeah. So, okay, what's next? So next, you guys want to follow us on socials. You'll want to join Shelf Addiction Official on Facebook, because our next one, we're going to have like a little different episode. We'll take a month off from reading. We're going to have a celebration of types, because we've been doing this for so long. We're going to celebrate an anniversary of our read along, the 3 bloggers read along.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So you want to be a part of all that. And there's some giveaways coming and stuff, but you need to be following us on socials and in the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group to get in on that. So definitely don't miss out on that. And then I will be announcing the next series shortly, I guess. Actually, if you're in Shelf Addiction Official, you probably already know by now, because I'm starting to announce them earlier. So you'll already know. But if you are listening now on the podcast, then yeah, you'll just know when you know, I guess. So stay tuned for another exciting series, which is yet to be determined, because it's Casey's pick. It's her pick. Yeah, so that would be fun. So yeah, the gang will be back together in the next episode, so get excited. And I think that's it for today. What do you think, Nicola?
I think that might be it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for streaming and downloading. I appreciate you listening to this episode. And as always, take care of yourselves. Bye, guys.
All right.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction Podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.
You've been on the road for hours, covered 527 miles, listened to 3 podcasts, had 2 calls with your mom and 1 with your sister, and you're really hungry. And look at that. There's a McDonald's 1 mile up ahead meal. There's a meal for every moment at McDonald's.
Enjoy a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit and bacon, egg, and cheese McGriddles. Get 2 of the same or 1 of each for $4. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with combo meal. Single item at regular price.
It's a new year, and with T-Mobile, it's not about how far apart we are. It's about how close we can be. So we're bringing out our best deal. Right now, get the iPhone 12 on us on every single plan with eligible iPhone trade-in.
So I can FaceTime with my sister in Savannah.
That's right, the iPhone 12 on us on every plan. All on America's 5G leader in coverage. T-Mobile.
With 24 monthly bill credits and a new line plus tax. If you cancel credit, stop and balance on required finance agreement may be due. Contact us for well-qualified buyers. Qualifying consumer plan required. See coverage and offer details at T-Mobile.com.